Satellites?
A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku. I'm Milo.
I'm Shawn.
We were just talking about the common thing for our age group, helping an elderly parent configure a new computer. And what I'll say is, obviously I like to screen share. I'm a very visual person. And every time you install like a new program, my dad's on Windows 11, he's not familiar with it. And either am I. I'm a Mac guy. So every time you install a new program, it wants you to restart. And once he restarts, it kicks him off the meeting. And then he has to go find the link in his email, And at this point, the third time through, he goes to gmail.com and it says, "We're sorry, the site, address that you've entered has been moved or is no longer available." And I'm like, what? Like, I just don't. And then he goes to I took him to NewYorkTimes.com and it said, "This site does not support a secure socket connection."
Oh, God. Yeah.
And I haven't even turned Norton on yet. So I'm not sure why he's having this.
Yeah, why? Right.
It's really weird. Like you can't even
really
go
weird.
to New York Times. And then I'm always
Well,
afraid.
like it's like its SSL isn't working, like its HTTPS is not
That's
working,
what
basically.
it seems like. But the thing is, we did
But
go into
that shouldn't be your dad's problem.
we did go into Chrome,
Yeah.
and we did go and change the privacy security settings to be like block pop-ups, block malicious ads and stuff, because he has a lot of trouble where people somehow I don't know if you.
I use Ghostery. It's the best.
Ghostery. Oh yeah, I just downloaded that yesterday. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Ghostery.
that's my favorite one. I mean, I use that plus ad blocker.
Yeah.
I use them both at the same time, but
can use them at the
Ghostery,
same time. Interesting.
man,
Huh.
yeah, they do different things. But yeah, I mean, Ghostery, I swear by it. I've used it for years now. Now, some sites have gotten more savvy about it, like YouTube won't let you. It used to filter out the pre-roll ads.
Oh, that's brutal.
Not just the visual ads, but the ads inside the videos.
Dang, how does it
the
even
the the served up pre-rolls, not the not like if it's edited
Built
into
in,
the video.
Right.
Yeah.
I pay for the Google Premium so I don't have to watch the ads, just because the ads really were getting to me, and I just And
yeah. I mean, if it's worth it, if you use it enough, like get rid of the ads. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my wife, like if my wife, she doesn't have the premium, and so she's watching like Stephen Colbert or something, and then like the next episode, the next little clip.
Isn't there like a family premium that you could?
There probably is, but there might be. I'm gonna check it out, but I think it's
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I've invited her to. This is always funny because my wife is probably the first person to listen to the pod when we release a new one. So hey, how's it going, Holy? So it's funny because I've invited her to like Apple Family Plan, like where you have access to like all the music, all the Pro Plus TV shows, and she just, because she's in a Windows world and has a Samsung, she's like doesn't want to like.
I see. She's like Android Windows.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've looked it up.
You're like the marriage of like what's that, Kevin Long and who's. Remember the Mac and Windows guys, those ads back in the day?
Those were good. The sort of chubby guy and then like the cooler kid with
Kevin
long
Long was the young guy, and then I can't remember the comedian's name who played the Windows guy. Anyway.
He was funny. He's a little
His
bit
voice
chubby.
is so distinguishable. You hear him doing voiceovers in animated shows once in a while.
Do you think that was Chiat Day? Because they did a lot of Apple stuff, and some of the most brilliant stuff was
I remember, I think it was, yeah. I feel like I remember it being mentioned as one of theirs, like before. I don't know if they still do Apple stuff. But. I would be totally lost if I was trying to help like you were trying to help your dad with. I would be utterly, completely lost trying to help anybody with Windows.
Wait, so here's what.
But it makes me mad just vicariously. It makes me a little irritated that he had to restart that many times just installing software.
Yeah.
Like that. That just seems like shitty software design.
Yeah, and so he couldn't get through to the Gmail, so I was like, okay, that's weird. Just get rid of that tab and open a new tab. And he's like, how do I open a new tab? And I'm
God.
Can you go up upper left corner, and what does it say? Does it say Chrome and then File?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, it says Bing. And I was like, are you in Bing? Like, what are you? I don't know that you're even in Chrome. I was like, go down to the taskbar and click
that's
Chrome.
the other thing, too, is like you tell people to go to the top and they look at the top of the app that they're in instead of like the top of the screen. It's like...
I watch him. It's really funny because it's kind of like doing, if you know, like this joke that I've often used where it's like, you're trying to do an appendectomy remotely, like from, you know what I mean, like over the internet, like, and you've got like these robotic arms, and you're like, there's a delay or something. Anyway, so it's like, because I watch this mouse, and I'll say, like, in the middle of the screen at the bottom, there's a little rectangle on the right-hand side. It says hide. Could you just click on that? And you watch this mouse go around the thing. He goes past it. I was like, no, go back. He slowly moves it. He's waiting for me, and I'm like, Dad, it just fall, go to the right of that thing. It's really cute. And so, anyway.
You're like, 11 o'clock, go to 11 o'clock by 100 pixels. 100 pixels to, not that he would know what a pixel is, but
This sounds
how do if he's at how do I open a new tab level of needing help, that is rough. That is really rough. And like, my mom needs help sometimes, but like, she's not at the how do I open a new tab level of needing help.
So I said, there's this new thing called Copilot, and it's like Microsoft 11, and it's
like Clippy.
Yeah,
it's
Clippy,
like the return of Clippy with like a bigger brain.
So typically, I'm trying to train him to go to Copilot and just ask basic questions like, how do I open a new tab in Chrome? So this time, he goes to the bottom and he goes, I click on Copilot. Usually it opens and I can just ask her questions, but it won't open. I just click on it, nothing happens. And I'm like, I can't tell you I don't know where to start. Like if Copilot won't open and you click, it's just, we haven't even installed Norton yet, so it can't be that.
What's your stance on like, just the AI enhancements in things in general? Like I use the different AIs, LLMs, right, for different things. And I use them, a fair amount. But like, for example, we have an Echo Alexa thing here. I don't want to even say the word because, obviously it'll start talking to me. But we have those in the house, and they keep bugging me every time I use it for something. Like my most common use case is like set a timer.
Oh, sure.
Like I have this very over-engineered timer. Really, is really what I have.
I mean, I use timers all day long, and I should probably just say.
I use it to set timers and reminders. And like remind me at this time to go pick up my daughter, because I just will lose track of the time and I'll be in the middle of something. So like, it is helpful, right? But it's an extremely over-engineered timer, and that's mainly what. So, but every time I use it now, it bugs me to upgrade to Alexa Plus, right? It's trying to change its sales pitch each time. And Alexa Plus, I guess, has AI, more robust AI built into it, and so it can do things like the thing that actually, my resistance to it is the feature itself, like what it is purporting to be. The thing that's supposedly better about it is the reason I don't want to upgrade, which is so like. The sales pitch is like little things like, oh, we have more voices you can try out, whatever. Like, like they're just trying any little sales pitch to get me to. But the thing that it's better at, supposedly, is maintaining a conversation so that you can ask like follow-up questions and things like that. But that, to me, that means it's listening more. Like right now, it's triggered by the code word. Like there's a word that activates its name, right? Activates it, right? But if it's going to be able to engage in follow-up conversations, like minutes later, especially minutes later, like seconds later is one thing, but minutes later, without using the word, you know what I mean?
No, it's bad.
Like if it's talking to you, and it's maintaining a thread of stuff you said a while ago, and you don't always have to use the wake-up word, that means it's really listening.
Yeah. No, it's pretty wild.
So and right now it's listening for the wake-up word.
And is that information, is that all that listening and processing happening on a server somewhere in the cloud, or is it on the device, or like where is that happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to happen on the... So the listening is happening on the device, but processing, I could see that on the device it might have enough capability to know when the wake-up word is said. But
like a ROM chip or something.
But everything else has to be done.
Wow.
On its bigger system, especially if it's getting more AI and robust, right? Like, so then the other one that just like interrupted my workflow or just interrupted me, was in my face a little bit the other day, was I was typing an email. I was replying to an email to a friend. And it was like you want help writing this email? It's like, fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems gross to ask for AI to help write an email to a friend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah. It's intrusive.
It makes me think of the old Ted Chiang article about like why AI will never create art. And, you know, he talks about the difference between output and sort of like, so a really good example, he uses two really good examples to just distinguish between what a human is doing and what AI is doing. And he and I loved these two examples. One is like a fan letter from like a teenage girl to like Katy Perry or something, right? Like writing an email to say, I'm such a huge fan, blah, blah, blah. Like your song is blah, blah, blah is really inspired, whatever. Like a thing a teenage kid would write to their, you know, performing artist idol that they're a fan of, right? Like it doesn't matter how well written that letter is. Like AI could do a great job writing that letter, but the point is not how well written it is, right? Like it doesn't matter how articulate that letter is. The fact is, the thing that is important about that letter is it's from that kid to that person, that artist, right?
Yeah.
So the other example it gives is an apology. When you apologize to someone, like it doesn't matter how good like if your apology is sincere, that's what matters, right? Like it doesn't matter how well crafted it is. And so I think that like, I thought that was a really good kind of just illustration of just kind of like why and when we don't need AI to make us better at this or that. Like it doesn't matter. The quality of the sentences in those two use cases doesn't matter at all.
Huh. It's funny listening to you describe, like when Midjourney came out and Adobe Firefly or whatever, I was using them like 2 years ago to help build like, you know, political ads and websites and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd say like, I'm not like anti using AI tools. I just slowly stopped using them because I didn't like what I was getting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the other thing. And you're using them intentionally and you're like, you have a targeted task and that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But even then, my analogy that I was telling Lonnie, my wife the other day was that it's like having kind of a sort of an intern. It's like having a fairly unskilled intern at your disposal. Yep. And it's like, it's super convenient for certain tasks, like doing research or something. Like, can you compile a bunch of this? Can you just sift through this and find blah, blah, blah? Yeah. Like that's the thing you would assign, like your intern. Yeah. If you were Kramer Corp, right? You would have your intern and Kramer Corp. Wasn't that Kramer's company on Seinfeld? And he had he had his intern? Anyway. So, but then when you give an intern like a task, like, hey, can you put together like a document that does this, right? Like they're not good enough. They don't have enough knowledge and experience to do a good job at that. And so they're going to come back with something that's kind of shitty and then you iterate and then you're like, no, it needs to be better in this way. Mm-hmm. So to me, it really feels like working. When I've worked with interns in the past, that's what it feels like when I ask AI to do something that requires some level of quality. It's like, you're not giving me the quality that I'm wanting because you're my intern, right? Like the thing is, it's way faster. So it's like having a poorly, like a semi-skilled intern, but who works really fast.
Right. Like, and they don't need to go to the bathroom and they just, and they don't need to be paid. Yeah. So I guess my experience is that like, I'm not opposed to using the tools, but my experience, like my personal experience of like, went through recently with the Firefly and it gives you now access to like 9 different large language model, like image creation tools. So like you can get like Gemini and Google this and Nanobot and all this banana hat or something. And I tried them all and they're all like different and have nuances and stuff. But I was just like, my experience was like, there's too many options and they all suck. Like honestly, none of them were like,
they're all mediocre.
They're all mediocre. Yeah. They're all,
and they all make really, really basic rudimentary mistakes too. Like I was trying to use one of them to make an image for me a while back. And I was like, I like the content. Here's my feedback was like, the content of the image is great, but I asked for landscape orientation, not portrait.
Yeah.
So can you just generate something similar, but landscape? Like, and I gave it the aspect ratio. I was like, in case you don't know, like 9:16, right? Like,
yeah.
And then it returned portrait again. I was like, no, I want like like wide, landscape. And it's like, yes, okay, well, here's a landscape one, and it's portrait again. It's like, no, that's not landscape. You're telling me you're doing it, but then you're giving me like that's a really basic mistake.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, it's like you're saying like an intern, like it's like you gave someone film in the old days, and they instead of taking it to the black and white processor, they ran it through the slide film processor, and it came back destroyed. And you're like, that's kind of like the one job. Like you had one job.
Right. Exactly. Like it was actually really good. The contents of the image were impressive. I was like, it's really good. But like, how can you not just make it landscape?
Yeah, that's bizarre.
So it's just that. So that's the kind of thing like you constantly run into with AI. They're like, I feel like there's a teacher, like an English teacher, a college professor was talking about like how he spots AI in his students' work. And I wish I could articulate it as well as he did, but he said something like, basically it's like a weird combination of high skill and poor ideas or something like that. It's like just a totally unnatural mix of really good at certain things and really bad at certain things in a way that a human would never mix being good and bad in those same ways.
That's a really good
point.
And
I wish I could remember more specifically what he said, but I think that's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's what you run into with these tools all the time. They're really impressive and really bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Constantly.
And
in a really unnaturally, not like the way a human wouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. So years and years ago, I used to do. I was just looking through some old slides, but back in like the year 1997 to 2000, I was doing a lot of magazine illustration, and I was doing it by hand, like with watercolors, and like I would do these collage things and scratch into them and stuff. Mm-hmm. Kind of Rufino Tamayo inspired figures, and I remember buying a printer. I had a Mac. I remember spending like $600 on like 8 gigabytes of RAM or something. It was like or 65 megabytes of RAM. It was crazy small amount. And I had Photoshop, and I would work on the thing for like a good 2 hours, and then I would scan it, and I'd bring it into Photoshop and start to manipulate it. And there was like an efficiency in that I could undo, and I didn't, like you can't really undo when you're painting, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd get like to a certain point, and then I'd switch. And I remember my wife at the time, I worked in a studio in the garage, and I'd come into the house, and she would say, your personality, your disposition, when you're working with actual brushes and tools is very zen and peaceful. And when you switch to the computer, just as a feedback, she's like, not a criticism, but just you come into the house.
That's a really interesting observation.
Very prickly and kind of annoyed because there's these like little micro annoyances that happen when it's not quite right, and you're waiting, and you're like, oh, and it glitches.
Well, and they catch you by surprise. Like you kind of know exactly all the failure points and all the resistance points and friction that you're going to experience with paint and brushes.
Right.
But you're constantly getting surprised in a bad way by what software is going to do. Right. It's not like you're going like, oh. You know what I mean? Like with a brush, you know exactly like, oh, I put too much black in that shit. Now I got to remix those colors, right? Like,
that's true.
Like those are annoying, but you know exactly like you can put the causal chain together in a way in your head, and you're like, oh, I should have known, right? Like, and you know exactly. Yeah, there's something. It's interesting.
And there was this
constant unpleasant surprises.
There was like a Pied Piper promise of. Yeah. But you always have Apple Z. Like you can always undo, and that's worth everything. Like don't go back to painting because we can give you Apple Z, and which is undo.
And then there's just like the whole thing about saving. Like if you didn't save like every 30 seconds, right? Like then you lose 12 minutes of work, and you're like, that 12 minutes was super. Like that was a lot of stuff I did in that 12 minutes.
Yeah, I have to say I remember like, the day where someone at Microsoft put in like autosave on Word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? Like that should
Oh,
happen in every fucking program.
changer.
What
It's
the
a huge
hell?
game changer. Yeah.
Because you want to be able to go back to like not lose everything in the last thing. But anyway,
go ahead. Yeah,
so I was just going to finish up and say like, and I think about that now. Like I think about like that ugliness has reemerged in this AI world, because when I'm working in trying to generate an image in AI, it's similar to that. There's something awkward about, like, you never quite get it. And when you try to you go down this rabbit hole and you never get there, and you sort of abandon it. And then you feel like, ugh, like I need to take a shower because I wasted all this time. With this, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know
no, that's perfect. I need to take a shower because I wasted. Yeah. You have this icky feeling about how much of your day was wasted on that.
Yeah.
So I wrote a piece. This was one thing I just kind of tumbled out of me the other day, or yesterday, day before, I can't remember. But, so I just finished listening to an audiobook. I usually don't do audiobooks, but do you ever listen to Miracles and Wonder, one Paul Simon one? Oh man, so good. Yeah. It's Malcolm Gladwell basically kind of doing this sort of homage to Paul Simon, but it's like a biography of Paul Simon, but it's like a musical. If you do the audiobook, like he's interviewing Paul Simon along the way, and Paul Simon like will answer a question with his guitar and stuff like that. It's really a fun,
that is cool.
Totally fun listen. It's called Miracles and Wonder. But anyway, so I was listening to something, and like some podcasts end with like, what are three books like Ezra Klein ends with what are three books you recommend, right? I think it might have been one of his things that I was listening to. But the guy he was talking to was a Buddhist teacher, and one of the books he recommended was this book called John and Paul: A Love Story in Songs, and it's about John Lennon and Paul McCartney's friendship and collaboration. And the way he recommended this book was just like, it just sounded like a good read. So I grabbed the book wasn't available from the library, but the audiobook was, and I popped it in. I thought, oh, maybe it'll be like Miracles and Wonder because it's about songs. And unfortunately, I guess they couldn't get the licensing to this actual music or whatever, or they just didn't want to for the book. But the conceit of the book is to use a Beatles song as sort of the touchstone or sort of basis for each chapter, and use that as a jumping off point to talk about some phase in their work and their friendship and their collaboration. It's a wonderful book. And just like, for me, the Beatles, like, I grew up with the Beatles, and like for all intents and purposes, their music was so embedded in the culture already by the time I was a little kid that it's like I never really listened to it. You know what I mean? Like it was like row, row, row your boat.
Sure. It just
it's just there. But it was really wonderful to hear this book, and just to kind of have it's like Song Exploder in a way for a whole bunch of Beatles songs. Like it talks about the process that went into something like Eleanor Rigby, or like Penny Lane with like 5 pianos stacked on the tracks and it's stuff you wouldn't really pay attention to, but it's like, oh, there are actually 5 pianos, and like I think it's A Day in the Life. I read the news today, oh boy, that song.
Yeah.
There's a section in there where they had this idea for having a whole symphony orchestra as part of that, and what they wanted, like John and Paul were kind of like brainstorming what they wanted. One of them came up with this idea that, what if we had a full symphony orchestra, and what we had them do was have all the instruments, all the members of the orchestra, just start playing, on the lowest notes they can hit on their instruments, and just work like over 24 bars or whatever, or over 8 bars, work their way up to the highest note they can hit in any progression that they want. It'll just be noise, but it'll be sort of like rising noise.
Wow. And
so, their producer was like, we don't have the money for a whole symphony orchestra, but I'll give you half an orchestra. But then they were worried that, oh, these are people that they read sheet music. They're sort of like, compared to our world, they're very stuffy. Like they like things a certain way. Like, we're never going to get an orchestra to just improvise like that. And so then they had this idea, well, what if we threw a party in our studio and we all dressed up super silly, and just kind of like, it just made everybody feel like they're shedding their inhibitions a little bit. So they hosted a costume party with the orchestra, and they had silly noses and costumes that everybody could wear. And anyway, so just, it's like cool to hear stories like that.
Yeah, yeah.
and then go to listen to the song and just listen to what the orchestra does in that song, A Day in the Life. And it's like, in the context of what I just heard, like, it's really cool to go back and listen to the song. But anyway, so I was just thinking about like that experience. Imagine, so like that, then they end up with a song that has a certain sound, right? Mm. So I was writing this piece, and I wasn't thinking about AI at all when I started writing this little piece. I was just going to write what I enjoyed about the book, kind of, and what I kind of like, just sort of my takeaways about their friendship, and which I thought was just really cool. So I wrote this piece, but as I was getting to the end of it, I couldn't help thinking about like AI. Like, imagine a world where AI can output that song, A Day in the Life, and it's just as good. But what you miss is that entire story, that entire experience, all those people along the way to that song. Starting with the sort of the blood and sweat that went into just thinking of the song in the first place, and the inspiration and the curiosity and just the interaction between the musician, Paul and John, and whatever input they got from the other Beatles and their producer or whatever else. But just then the costume party, the experience of hearing that for the first time in an orchestra doing what they thought might be cool, and just hearing what that actually sounded like, just all of that experience that all of those people had along the way to that song would be completely, like, imagine a world where you just had AI making stuff. You don't have any of that. Like, all that experience, all that process is just, even if you have the output that's just as good, none of those, you have this other world where all those people had this experience along the way to that song. That's what really matters, right? Like, so it's just weird to me. Like, I think when you hear like the Andreessens of the world talk about the promise of AI, or Sam Altman, they seem to just have they don't have any conception of, let alone any value, let alone put any value in all of that, right? Like, they just kind of think the output is the only thing people care about. And it's super sad to me. Like, imagine a world without all of that experience, but you just have the output. It's so empty.
It makes me think of, do you remember, we had a professor, I always used to label him as my most sort of formative philosophical art teacher. And it was E.B. Glenn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he had him before. There was a...
Yeah, E.B. Glenn gets a thumbs up on your bubble there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he he had this little, I guess it was like a pamphlet or a booklet called The Affectional Ordering of Experience.
Yeah, art is the affection, or art is the affectional
ordering of experience. And
yeah.
And to me, the reason I sort of list him as my sort of formative art philosophy teacher is that he, for the first time, he presented the idea that I have a life experience and my audience has life experience, and we convene.
Yeah,
like I create an object as the artist, and I put it out there to be viewed or heard or listened to.
Yeah,
and then everyone's ears and eyes and whatever senses they're using to interact with the art or to observe it, I guess, they're bringing their own library of experience to the meaning of it, and that's right. The magic of art. Like, that's right there. Yeah. We're communicating with other humans,
right,
through a third sort of almost like a
yeah,
I don't know, like a communicate, like a transfer tower, like a repeater in the woods. And that's what I think is missing when you say, like, with the Andreessens, is that if the AI creates it and then humans,
there's no conversation at all anymore.
There's no conversation at all anymore. So, like, it's missing.
Right. I was going to say that 50% of it is missing because there's still a viewer, but it's really the entire thing is missing.
Yeah.
The entire conversation is absent. And not just that, like, think about, like, what drove that artist in the first place. There was, curiosity. There was, exploring some idea. There was something,
there was pain. There was emotional pain.
There was
trauma.
Psychic pain or whatever. There was a lot of different things driving the creation of that work. Then it was done almost always through a process, an iterative process of trial and error, where there was always the possibility of failing, where there had to be some persistence, right? Like there's a process. AI doesn't have anything like a process that looks anything like that, right?
Right.
And then that process is happening in a context of external pressures, right? Like think about like if you're doing something that nobody's ever done. Like just little examples again from the Beatles. Like early on, they wanted to they recorded a song, and this is before 4-track, so they were doing live recordings, in their early days. And one of the recordings they laid down, it had some amp feedback at the beginning, right? And so like you obviously edit that out, right? But they were like, oh, that sounds cool. Let's keep the amp feedback in. Yeah. Like just that kind of thing was just nuts at the time. Like you want to keep a mistake in the thing, and they're like, yeah, it sounds cool, right? Like you have to have a certain level of sort of confidence and courage to do something new, totally trailblazing, when everybody's telling you it's a bad idea, right? Like so just that kind of courage and risk feels different depending on what those external pressures are. Maybe the risk is I'm just going to be embarrassed in front of my collaborators. Maybe the risk is, oh, nobody will buy this or whatever, right? Like there's different kinds of risks that feel different, that require different kinds of courage, right? Like, so all of that is human. It's uniquely human.
Yeah.
None of that is part of that AI output process, any of it, right? There's no process, there's no external pressures, there's no sense of risk, courage, possibility of failure, conversation with you and the person who's ultimately receiving it. Like none of that. And all of that stuff I just described that goes into the artistic process, that becomes part of that conversation with that audience, right? Like the blood and sweat and mistakes and, stopping and starting and restarts that you put into that work, that ultimately is embedded in that conversation on some level that you're describing, right?
It makes me think of a couple things. Back in 1989, November 9th, the Berlin Wall came down. I think you went to the wall that summer, right? Like you went to
yeah.
Or maybe you went to the concert? Concert.
I was both, yeah. The concert was at the Brandenburg Gate, yeah.
Yep. So that must have been like the following summer that the concert was, because it was November that it came down. But anyway, so that spring, it was
November 89, and then I was there in the summer of 1990, yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, exactly. So then my professor, John Kamaker, was really well known in the animation world and had written a bunch of history books about animation. Mm-hmm. And he invited over a bunch of Russian artists in residence, or Soviet artists who I don't know how he knew them, but because they were working behind the Iron Curtain. But he brought them over, and they stayed in apartments or dorm rooms, and they just hung out, and it was so cool. There was one guy who was, and it was basically like, imagine Jim Henson's children's television workshop. Like if that team came over from Russia, and we had never seen their shit, and everything they did, like Sesame Street for them, was all done stop motion, like stop fucking motion, like each character had to move his hand,
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's like so OCD and just painful. I can't even imagine.
Oh shit, yeah, like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
The whole thing is.
I thought it was CGI when I watched it. I actually wrote a piece about that too, because we went up to Portland as a family trip year before.
Yeah.
Whenever that movie came out, like sometime after that movie came out, we were in Portland, and they have this science and technology museum there. So we went there, and the big sort of exhibit they had was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And I was like, huh. So I went there, and they had the sets, and they had the figurines. Yeah. And these are like figurines with metal skeletons and like all the stuff built on top of them so they can move them around.
How big were they?
They were probably like the old G.I. Joes, like a foot tall.
Oh, wow.
But like, listen to this. Like, to get Pinocchio to talk, they had one of the exhibits was this wall of Pinocchio faces with just his mouth, his mouth and eyebrows in different positions.
Wow.
So like, to get him to say a word, they had to swap out his face over and over again and take the shot. And I was like, talk about painstaking. And the thing about it that was so, like, this is exactly the context. Like, I wrote a piece, like, right after we saw that called In Praise of Slow Art on my thing. And it was just that very thing. Because, like, what I thought was so wild about it, one thing I thought was, because I had seen the movie and I thought, I just assumed it was CGI.
Yeah.
Like, CGI is good now, right?
Yeah. Toy
so
Story.
Then, so that you watch it, I watched it again after seeing all of that stuff. And I was like, it still kind of looks like it could just be CGI. And then I was like, why would you do all that in a world where you could produce the same thing with a computer? Like, why would you go through all that trouble with all those artists and all those people? And then I thought, how fucking amazing it is that he did that in a world where he could have just used CGI.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, if I were Andreessen, the Andreessens of the world would look at that same thing, or the Elon Musks, and they would go, that's so fucking inefficient. Like, why would anyone do that?
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, and it would offend them to the core.
Yeah.
And I had the opposite reaction. Like, I was like, that is beautiful. Like, I'm so glad that it wasn't CGI, even though I can't really tell the difference when I look at the output. Like, like when I saw the exhibit, and I just thought all these people all these artisans basically got to be part of this thing that they created. It's massively impressive.
By the way,
really amazing.
I studied animation at NYU, and I remember we had these big, like, I guess they were larger than legal size pages. Like maybe they were, I don't know, 11 by 17.
Yeah.
And they had this, a grid. And we literally would, in fact, one thing that Disney people came up with, which really saved a lot of time, was they would have an actor, probably the voiceover artist, read the script, and they would just shoot it on 16 millimeter. And then they would just project frame by frame the live action thing, and they'd draw with each frame, they'd draw what the lips looked like and what that face was doing. So then they'd go back and they'd, like, as you say, they'd put the right lips on based on a chart. Like they were following a chart that was
of like
frame
of a word
by
or whatever.
frame. Yeah, unbelievable. And so I've done that work, and it's painstaking. And there's part of me that has, I think it might be the Scottish part that's like, always trying to be more efficient. Like there was a side note, like once for the Waldorf School, we would do this craft fair thing in the wintertime. And we were supposed to make like 500 origami boxes. And so a bunch of parents got together at our house, and we were like, I made like 3. And then I was like, it would take me 45 minutes to get to Nogales, and I could find a maquiladora, and I could just pay them $1,000. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, we'll be done this fucking, because it's taking me, I made 3 in an hour. Like, holy shit, there's no way. So anyway, there's a part of me that's
the ADHD side of you. Like, repetitive and tedious is like the kryptonite for somebody with ADHD.
Yeah, totally. Like, there's part of me that while I was doing the lip sync thing, I just was like, oh my God, there's got to be a faster way. Like, this is just horrendous.
Right.
And we actually had the raisins come, the guys that did
it. Takes a certain kind of temperament to just be totally chill with doing that. Yeah. Anyway,
we invited the guys. Do you remember that the ad campaign where the California raisins used to dance around?
The Raisinets. The
Raisinets would dance, and it was all stop motion. So we had the guys from New York, the film studio that did the raisins, came in to talk to us, and they all had ZZ Top beards, like really long beards. And I actually asked, I was like, how do you guys, I said, some kid asked, how long does it take to shoot like 1 second? And he's like, about 3 weeks to shoot because each person in the team had like a couple of raisins, and they had to like move them and check everything. And you can't screw up, because then if one raisin's leg is in the wrong place, it looks stupid, right? So I asked, like, how do you focus? Like, how do you not get distracted by just being bored? And he goes, we just smoke tons of weed, man.
That's what I mean. Like, I think there's a certain kind of temperament that's just like totally fine with smoking weed and doing something like that for weeks on end. And not everybody has that temperament. And
Arnold Schwarzenegger said that about working out, because he would work out like 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And back when he was George Bush made him like the presidential fitness guru.
Fitness guy, yeah.
And some idiot Republican was like, oh, he used to smoke weed. And he was like, of course. He's like, you can't work out. You can't be in the gym for 8 hours without being high. Like, it's just, there's no fucking way. No one could handle it. It was pretty funny. That was his answer.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But back to, we were talking about this AI thing. So one parallel I see, and maybe it's like maybe I'm like way too big picture for this, but back when we were talking about the woman who comes from Rust Belt, Maine,
Yeah.
and she said, we've been through a loss of jobs and a sense of purpose. If we look at the Rust Belt, part of America, West Virginia, across New York and stuff. She goes, we've been through this once before, and we should learn from the mistakes we made then, because we just sort of abandoned those workers. And then they all started taking heroin and blah, 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 like whatever. I'm being flippant about it, but you know what I mean? So, and she's like, and now with AI, we're back to this idea that like, it's still automation and it's still Rust Belt loss of jobs, but on a different scale in a different sector. And, we should kind of remember that we've been through this before, And in some ways, my point is like, when I came in from the studio and was prickly because I was using the computer and not using a brush, if you jump ahead 30 years, like now where AI is trying to create the art for you and you're using a prompt and it feels just as prickly. And you know what I mean? Like I said, I need to go take a shower because I've been writing prompts. And
even if it was completely frictionless, like there's something so empty about that.
Yeah, there's something.
Even if you could do a simple prompt and it produced something just like brilliantly executed and delightfully surprising to you, like even if that was the world, like that, how empty is that?
Yeah, and a detractor, like a pro, like a Sam Altman might say, if we were sitting down over a sandwich in San Mateo. What was the guy's name? Kenji Lopez Alt's restaurant.
Yeah.
He might say, Milo, your brain, when you're making art, you're pulling on 1,000 references of things you've seen and heard and watched. And you're amalgamating a sort of quote unquote new thing from that vast library of experience. Yeah. And in some ways, when I send my bot out to scrub the internet and scrape and bring
it's
back,
doing that same thing.
It's kind of doing the same thing, but
then you don't get the pleasure of doing that thing.
Right, and also no other human that sees what was created is connecting. There's like a disconnect between me and those other humans because I wrote a prompt and then it went out and scrubbed the internet for experience. Plus, it didn't have
that was
any
kind
of those experiences. It
right.
just scrubbed it for humans. It's
absolutely. And even if AIs were producing a bunch of stuff and it was scrubbing that too, like who cares, right? Like, but that was kind of one of the things I said in this piece I just wrote was just that, like, when you think about, I was using it as sort of a definition for what genius is, like doing something new, innovative, and experimenting, like the drive to innovate and experiment, and the persistence to do it, as a practice is sort of what genius is in a way, right? And I was just thinking like, to innovate and experiment, the ability to, is what I said, the ability to innovate and experiment was the first piece of it, the sort of the first element I was thinking of. And I was thinking like an AI when I said ability, what I meant was you have like a well of resources, references to draw on. And you have a competent sort of pair of hands to produce something from that well of stuff. Like, so like anybody can do something totally novel, but like to innovate and experiment with purpose and to do it well requires like that well of resources of references and whatever, knowledge and experience and some competency with the craft, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so I was thinking like AI can potentially have those things. Like it can have that well of resources and it can be competent at producing some output. But then I was saying the other element of genius and creative genius is that drive to do it, like the reason to do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And so, and as we just said, that can come from psychic pain. It can come from curiosity. It can come from just an aversion to boredom. It can come from, all of these, you have all these mix of reasons why you just itch to create something. And then it's all being done in this environment in a context where there are pressures and risks and right. And so that's kind of what I was saying. Like when you put that whole picture together, what AI can have is one tiny piece of that, which is like a bit of the pool of resources to draw from and references and content, whatever, and it can have competent ability to produce output, but it does is missing all the other stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, the AI is doing that. You're right, but like, who cares?
Right,
and that's useful for certain things, but it's not art. That's the difference. That's the Ted Chiang thing. Like, it's not making something that we could call art in that process, because there is no process.
The other thing it reminds me of, which, and I know I'm going back like 28 years in time or more, like 33 years.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the early 90s, Brian Eno wrote an essay about the, so like Korg, the company had sent him their brand new keyboard, and their marketing shtick was that it could make any sound a human could perceive. Like that,
Yeah.
like with this instrument, you can make any sound that a human within the range of human perception. And they said, can you do something cool with it? Like compose a piece with the keyboard as like a marketing thing. And he wrote this essay, which I thought was just it has haunted me since I read it.
This is Brian Eno.
Brian Eno, yeah. And he said, I'm sitting there with the keyboard and they've sent me this statement, like, it can make any sound you can hear.
Yeah.
And his immediate thought was, he sort of froze and he said, like, ooh, now my job is to tell it what not to do. Like, all of a sudden, like, I'm faced with this, it can make any sound.
Yeah.
So your job is to filter it and tell it what not to do. And he was like,
that's like that. It's like the paradox of choice, right? That's what they call, is that kind of, you're faced with too much. And he said, there's no constraints. Yeah.
So in the essay, he writes about the violin, and he says, part of the violin can only go so high, and you'll break a string, and you can only play kind of two strings at once unless you bend the bow. He's like, there's all these, for 500 years, humans have pressed up against the limitations of the violin and squeezed out as much beauty as they could, knowing that they couldn't go beyond a certain, this or that, or how many.
Yeah.
And he goes, and to me, that's kind of where we are. Like, I use that, I can see that analogy now today with AI. Like, there's something, like, the Korg to me is like Midjourney. Like, they say it can do whatever you want it to if you write the right prompt, right? But there's something that we need a violin. Like, we need a violin and not a Korg that can play any instrument.
And it disturbs me that the people who are pushing this whole movement, this whole technological wave forward, are people who don't value any of that at all and don't even understand it. It makes me think of, like, it's a little bit like when I had roommates. I had engineer roommates.
I remember that.
And you know these roommates, right? So, and I was doing artsy fartsy stuff, right? And so, and not just those roommates, but in multiple times in my life, I've encountered this in people who are sort of that techie engineer mindset, right? And there's just a level of just total incomprehension when it comes to just the creative stuff, right? Like, they just look at it and go, why would you spend money on a college education to do stuff that's just like a hobby? You know what I mean? That's how they think of it.
Right.
Like, like, anyone can make a painting or write a novel or a TV show or make a song. Like, that's like what you do that's what people do as a hobby. Like, that's not a vocation. In their minds, it's not a vocation, because they don't understand what goes into that stuff, and they don't understand the drive to make stuff and any of that. Like, it just doesn't compute with them at all. And I use that word intentionally, right? And so I think that, like, the Altmans and the Andreessens and the Elon Musks of the world, they're that way. Like, we have this thing. There's a cognitive bias. It's called, like, false consensus bias or something, where we just sort of imagine that everyone is a bit like us, like everyone, like how we think about the world and how we apprehend everything, how we process the world is kind of just how everybody does, right? Like, we just sort of naturally assume. And I think that's them, right? They're really powerful, but they're stunted in that one way. Like, they don't have this, they just don't understand. They have no grasp, no concept of what any of that is. Like the humanities as a whole domain of human knowledge, right? It's called the humanities for a reason. none of them, they're all STEM people, right? And that's not just a superficial thing. I think it's in the core of their whole being, their whole psyche is STEM kind of, and they just don't, like, think about what people get out of art and novels. Like, just as an experience of reading a book or watching a thing, like the old Shakespeare line, like in Hamlet, like when he's crying, watching that play within the play, and he's like sad and he's like, who's Hecuba? There's like the actress in this play that Hamlet's watching. Who's Hecuba to me? Who's Hecuba to me, or me to her, that I should weep for her?
Yeah.
Like, he's moved by this work, this performance that he's watching, but then it occurs to him, like, why would I be, like, she's not even real. Right. But that's all, like, that's the humanities. Like, it is the thing that helps us understand other humans and this journey we're all on, and the pain of it and all that, right? Those guys just don't, it's not even in their mind. That's not even in their psyche at all.
If we roll,
so they just don't get, like, they don't get that we have this, that people have needs beyond, like, their little STEM vision of everything.
It does. The first thing that pops into my mind when with that statement is the revenge of the nerds. Like if you roll the clock back, roll the clock back to ancient Greece, and you're standing in a theater, and there's a tragedy or a comedy being performed, like the people that convince the rest of the village or the city-state to build the theater and put on plays, understood how important it was for society to be able to empathize with these characters and kind of work through these like general, I guess we could say, through lines or threads of humanity, like that are kind of or questions that are being wrestled with by all of us.
Yeah,
and the STEM guys or these, and I'm being very, my daughter's studied STEM, and like I admire her a lot, and she has
absolutely, like we absolutely need STEM. Yeah. But there's this very strong sort of STEM myopia that those guys have.
And my point is that, like, maybe we, thousands of years later, we've come to a place where the revenge of the nerds eventually got to the point where they're in charge, and they're like, why did you build a fucking theater?
But it's a particular strain of nerd. Like, there aren't poet nerds in that mix.
Right. And they're literally saying, like, why would you build a theater? Like, we don't need that. Like, just,
or a library or whatever.
A library. Yeah. Like, why do we need that? That's a waste of resources,
I mean, if you ask those people, like you take a show that is popular and a high quality show like The Bear or something, right? Like just a well written, well acted, like just a high quality piece of work like The Bear. Just to take a random example,
which, by the way, is a comedy. It's categorized as a comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to be clear. Right?
So if you went to, like, if I asked you, I don't know if you watched The Bear. Did you watch it?
I maybe watched an episode, but I understand what it is.
Okay. But if you ask somebody, like, think of any show that you think is just like brilliantly done, and if somebody asked you, like, what makes that valuable in the world, like, why is it valuable, like, why is it worth anything, you would come up with reasons that are sort of like human reasons, most likely. Like, you'd be like, oh wow, what it says about people and ambition, whatever, like Severance or Succession or any of these shows. Like, you'd have some answer that talks about the human, sort of what it teaches you, what it conveys about humanity and the human condition, whatever, like, or love, or those that your answer would be something along those lines, most likely. If you asked Mark Andreessen or Elon Musk, like, what makes that valuable, like, why is it good that exists? Their answer would be like, well, how much money did it make for who, and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't be, none of that would be part of their answer at all. That's what I mean by they just don't even, it's not even in their psyche.
Interesting.
Those questions, those ideas, it's just not even part of their makeup. And that's fine. Like, it's fine to be, like, there are people in the world like that. But the idea that those people are running the world is the thing that's disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, it's we all are missing certain capacities as humans, right? Like, none of us is a fully wrought, perfect person, and they are missing that capacity, which is, that is nothing against them as people, But the fact that they are stunted in that way and also running the whole fucking world that's the thing that, and that's the thing I'm in tests that we're trying to, in the thing that we're working on. That's kind of the idea. That's sort of one of the core ideas of it is that that weird disparity.
Well, can you remind me of that quote that I forget who said it, but like we have like primitive brains.
Oh yeah, E.O. Wilson. Yeah.
What was the quote again?
It was primitive brains, medieval institutions, and godlike
technology,
something like that. Yeah.
So and you've seen this show, The Last of Us, and it's like this fungi or this cordyceps. Which, by the way, like in our family, like my wife makes this like mushroom drink every morning. Like she puts a little hot water and then she stirs in all these different mushroom powders, and she always hands it to me. And
it's called like mud or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's like 5 or 7 different mushrooms, and I always take it, and I always like I think it will eternally be funny, but I always go. Like that, and I like pretend I like attack her. I pretend that I like all of a sudden was inoculated with the thing, and for some reason to me that I just think it's so funny, and I'm sure it's not funny for her anymore. But anyway,
but that's the beauty of dad joke is that you just you don't let go of it.
Don't let go. In fact,
it becomes funny again in a meta way.
Yeah, and it can be entertaining because he's persistent about it, and not with my kids. I used to say the joke and then they wouldn't laugh, and then I would say it again and they would laugh, and they'd say, "We're laughing because you're insisting on thinking it's funny, but it's not." Right. And that like you're the funny one. Like you're the funny.
It's meta. You took it to a different level.
Yeah, like your personality is what's funny, not the joke. But
So
I was thinking about like that quote, and I was thinking about how if I was like doom scrolling, let's see, I did some doom scrolling last week, because I do feel like, and we didn't talk about politics this whole episode, but I do feel a little bit as if, bear with me for a second because I think I'm onto something. I had a friend who he went into the Peace Corps in Nepal, and he was a 2-day walk from the bus stop through the hills. Like it was 2 days to get from the village to the road where there was a bus. So pretty far in there, right?
That's far, yeah.
And he gets in there, and he was trying to help them build like a spring house where they could store their vegetables so they wouldn't, like they could stretch them out and keep the supply down, whatever. Anyway, so he's there for 2 years, and he said the first like month or even the first 6 months, what broke his heart and drove him crazy was that there was a man in the village, maybe the mayor, who would beat his wife at night. And she would cry and he'd hit her, and everyone in the village could hear it. And they just lay there wishing it would stop. No one did anything. He had been trained, like, don't like beat him up. You're not here to like change the culture.
Yeah.
And I heard that story and it broke my heart. And I remember thinking, like, in some ways, I feel like the whole planet is just sitting there watching a madman beat up the world, like, with just mess with everything in a dark way and like take us down a really nasty path. But like the entire 7 billion people on the planet are just sitting here listening and watching it happen. Does that kind of ring true for you? Like in some ways, like domestic violence?
So there's too many so I won't say 7 billion people because I think about like the fight that's happening in Minneapolis right now and the people that are standing up and putting their bodies in the way of ICE, and like there aren't 7 billion people that are doing nothing. There are people that are like in the fight, but when you look at like businessly, like the people that have serious power that ought to be doing, that have the most responsibility to be doing shit, are doing nothing.
Right.
So like the business leaders, fucking Tim Cook, man, I wish I could punch that guy in the face, right? Like I like Apple, but I want to punch Tim Cook in the fucking face.
It's crazy, right? And Zuckerberg,
like I never had much respect for Zuckerberg, but like there are companies that I thought would be, would rise to the moment a little bit, and that just like sank so far, so fast in a really discouraging way. Like Apple and Google both like literally the day after Trump said the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America, literally the next day, both Google and Apple Maps had it labeled the Gulf of America. And that kind of shit is the thing that I think of when you say like nobody's doing anything, like we're all just in this cowering watching position. I feel like there are lots of people in little ways with the little power they have that are doing things just to push back and stand up and speak the truth. But there are too many people with real power who have the most responsibility to do stuff. The media, corporate leaders, even world leaders. Like, I feel like, it was Mark Carney, is that his name? The president of Canada?
Yeah. His speech was pretty...
Like, you know, the thing he referenced in his speech, the Václav Havel, the power of the powerless, which is a brilliant pamphlet, book, whatever, mini book. I don't know if you've ever read it.
I haven't, but knowing that a world leader of Czechoslovakia was a writer and a poet is better. You know, it's kind of it's really something everyone should read. But the sort of like the part of it that he quoted or paraphrased was about, he's just talking about like the famous part of the book is the way it starts out. A shop owner puts up a, you know, Workers of the World Unite poster on his door of his shop. And he's not doing it because he believes that's the thing, like at some point, or that the government really cares about workers or any of that, right? Like he's doing it because that's what he's supposed to do, to be part of the, you know, like if he doesn't do it, there's going to be consequences if he doesn't put that poster up. And then his fellow businessmen are putting the same poster up for the same reason, right? So he's basically the way Havel frames it is that we're all in this situation living a lie. Like they are all lying. None of them believe this thing. They are doing it just to get along, to not be targeted, whatever, right? What's the name of the book?
The Power of the Powerless, I think it's called. Power to the Powerless, Power of the Powerless, something like that.
It's a novel.
It's a short, it's a long essay. It's a long essay, a short book. You can get it as a book, I think.
Okay.
And you know, then he basically just talks about like, what does it mean to live in truth and the power of that? And he's like all the little things, like once that guy stops putting up that poster, you know, that's an act of courage for that little, and it's a small thing, but what he's doing in that moment, in that small act, is he's deciding to live in truth, not in a lie. Right. And then, so, you know, the more people that do that, you know, the more power that movement has. And that movement, that was his movement. That was Havel's movement. That ultimately defeated the regime. And so that's kind of what he's saying. Like once enough people stop living the lie and start living in the truth, like that's when the shit changes. And I think we're sort of in that moment. It feels like, to me, that's the hopeful side of me, is I feel like I look at, you know, things like Gaza and things like tax the rich and shit like that. Like Rutger Bregman, the historian who made himself famous by showing at Davos and saying,
I love that guy.
Like, you know, there's 1,500 private jets here and nobody will talk about taxes, right? Like,
he's amazing.
That kind of thing, right? Like he's awesome. And so like, he's an example of a guy who's speaking the truth and people recognize it. And you look at like Mamdani, you know, calling the Gaza, you know, bombings a genocide, right? Like what Israel is doing is war crimes and a genocide. And he just didn't shy away from that language, regardless of what it would do to his political chances. And I think there's a real hunger for, when you look at the people who are going viral, who are being elected, who are getting kind of like thrust into the sort of like put up on even a little bit of a pedestal, like
Tallarico,
the people that are being admired at Tallarico, the people who are getting that kind of real admiration right now are the people who are simply willing to say a thing is what it is.
Yeah. Because
it's like the lowest bar, but being, you know, they're not gaslighting.
Yeah.
They're willing to actually just say the thing is what it is.
And it's what
the thing that we can all see. Like we all see it.
In some ways why Donald Trump rose up so quickly through the primary the first time, because people were like, they liked that he just was unfiltered, and he would
like there was this
shit,
game. You know? There was this game that everyone else was playing.
Yep.
And he didn't play the game. Now, he didn't play the game in the shittiest possible way, but I get it. Like in a world where everybody's gaslighting you, when that one person is just not gaslighting, it's like, oh, I like that guy.
No, it's
so it does feel like we are in this like just stop living in that lie moment. Ironically, with Trump, like it's all lies all the time with that whole regime.
Yeah.
You know, from the, Haitian immigrants eating dogs and cats, all of it. There's just like it's just just an absolute fire hose of lies all the time. So, and I think there are diehards that will never stop. They will be the last people on the Trump train, but there are a lot of people that, are looking for an off-ramp. And there are just a lot of people in general who, especially in the younger generation, who just recognize lying, who just have no tolerance for it anymore. Just like, get out of here with your fucking gaslighting. We know it's a genocide, or we know billionaires should pay more taxes. Like, stop trying to pretend the solution is something else.
Right.
Like we know it's so obvious. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. No, it's a really good, very good point. It makes me, it makes me think. The end of, I'm inspired by, as you say, like those that can just speak up. And I look back on, for instance, Bernie versus Hillary. Mm-hmm. Like Hillary and even Obama before her, just for whatever reason, they were in bed with Goldman Sachs and Wall Street, and they didn't want to like ruffle the feathers of the business leaders. So like people sensed that. They were like, hey, during the bailout, Obama bailed out. No one went to jail in Wall Street, and a lot of Americans lost their homes. Yeah. And no one was punished. And it felt like, oh my God, he doesn't have our backs.
Absolutely.
And that was like 100%. The sort of beginning of the sort of Trump era was this. Like,
and then it's exacerbated by the fact that when you get somebody like Hillary Clinton in an interview where she has nothing, she's not in running for anything.
Yep.
She has nothing to gain or lose. And like, for all intents and purposes, you can assume she's just saying what she honestly thinks.
Yeah.
She's not pandering to anybody.
Yeah.
Then she'll say shit, and you're like, then the stuff she says on the stump is like, you're pandering and lying.
Yeah,
like you just said that thing a year ago that was different. So like,
I mean, when Hillary was the first
it's so
lady,
obvious. Yeah.
When Hillary was the first lady, she went to Kerala, India, and Canada to look at building a socialized medicine system in America. Like that was her like main thing as a first lady. And it's like, she could have been a Bernie Sanders, but she just, I don't know.
Right.
She went down
and it's like, there's this idea they get swept up in that they have to play this game. But the thing is, like, when you weren't playing the game a year ago and now you're playing it, like, we can all see that.
Yeah.
They act like we can't see it.
Right. Yeah, it's brutal.
So like there's this whole generation of politicians that still sort of imagine that we can't see the stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're living in this old school world where like they imagine that what we see is just what gets broadcast by their machine. And it's like, no, we see stuff now. Yeah. You can't pretend reality is different than what we see.
Kathy Hochul just passed the New York State budget, and her number one banner that she flew was, I did it without raising taxes. And I was like, why are you fucking bragging about that, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, why?
Right.
What about, like, let's raise the fucking billionaires' taxes to a reasonable amount? Like, make them pay the same amount.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the fight in California right now.
It's
like
crazy. What the fuck?
Yeah, so
don't brag about that, man.
Like, so we're in this moment, like, I don't know. I don't know how much I subscribe to sort of, like, there's a sort of a new age current of discourse or rhetoric that talks about like, and I feel like it's been the case for my whole life. There's like this new age current of people that basically talk about how, we're at the end of a spiritual era and we're about to have the dawn of something better, right? Like there's always this idea like we're coming to the end And when stuff gets crazy, when an era is dying, it's the Kali Yuga that you talked about, right? It's the quickening. And so there's one part of me, it's like, I've heard that my whole fucking life from like the woo-woo new agey people, like that are just like, it's just this weird, like kind of knee-jerk optimism that they have as a way of, it's the same thing as like Christians going like, well, I get to go to heaven, so none of this matters. You know, it's a weird like cousin of that in my mind. But at the same time, it really, really, more than ever in my whole life, even though I've heard that my whole life, more than ever, it really does feel like that right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a very good point. Like we were Cold War kids, and I remember thinking, you know, my little analogy just now about the domestic violence.
Yeah.
In some ways, when I was 14 years old, I would, the idea that a bunch of old, rich white men would sit around and decide to build more nuclear weapons, like spend tax dollars building more and more and more, like enough to blow up 7,000 planets, you know?
Right.
And I just remember thinking like, this is insane. It's
totally insane.
Insanity.
It's like psychopaths running the world.
Yeah. And it was like, what, how, you know, so we grew up in that era and now it feels like that was insane enough. And my kids didn't grow up in that era, you know, like they just, but like, you know, Ronald Reagan was like, I'm going to win against the Soviets by bankrupting them, by spending so much money that they go bankrupt. And it's like, oh my God, that's why we don't have socialized medicine.
Right.
That's why we don't have fucking, you know, child care.
It's $3 trillion on the Gulf War, right? And, I mean, on the war on terror, Afghanistan and Iraq, right? Like, imagine what else we could have done with $3 trillion.
Right. So anyway, but I feel you here. Like it does feel like we're at a place where sort of a cracking point, like a point beyond which you're not coming back from this. It
feels like it feels like there's definitely no going back, but it definitely also feels more unsustainable.
Yeah.
In more ways than it ever has. And so it feels like it has to blow up. It has to result in some sort of massive collapse and reset. Like hopefully a reset.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember the Vikings had that practice where if they really wanted to establish a new colony, they would land and then burn the fucking boats. So that like you can't go back.
Yeah, we're burning the boats. Now.
We're burning the boat.
Yeah.
And that means we could rebuild the boat, but it might take like years and the trees aren't growing fast enough and we got to like, you know, shave them down and find a sail and stuff. But we burned the fucking boats with this one and there you go. All right.
So it is an opportunity and it feels like, you know, we are on the cusp of reshaping the world in some way. And, you know, sadly, there will be casualties of that process. And it might be our kids, right? It might be that whole generation is in suffering and turmoil and maybe 2 generations, right? But like, it feels like we are like the corpse, we're on life support as a society right now, and it will flatline and that will rebirth into something. And birth is painful, and it's a process. But that's what it feels like. Yeah. Even though I've heard that my whole life, and I'm a little bit dismissive of the new agey people that say that stuff because I have heard it my whole life. It really does feel like that more than ever.
Wow. Well, on that note, Satellite Haiku.
That's an interesting note to end on.
It's an interesting, doom and gloom. Satellite Haiku, thanks for listening. And as always, I'm Milo.
And I'm Shawn.
All right, take care.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.